It's almost
Over.
done.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant the newest season. Sorry.
Oh, season 7, we have no clue about. I mean, we're still winding down on season 6.
And what is one of the best things, one of your best experiences from this past season?
Well, for me, it's as with every episode, it feels that I've been in, because I have a recurring role. It feels that they keep expanding the part, and as I was saying in the interview in there, I often feel in the perfect situation there's a symbiotic relationship, because it starts with the writer, what the writer brings, and then you run with it, and then they see what you wind up bringing to it, and then they come back with something else that keeps opening it up more, which is part of the wonderful thing about the process. So to answer your question, I feel like the way they really expanded the part this year has really been fun. And I think he's having a lot of fun, as I said out there too. And there is something about his creativity they keep expanding upon, and his ability to lie, and the amount of fun and spontaneity and lack of personal censorship. In life we have to be more censored, but it's kind of fun as an actor to this guy just says anything that's on his mind. Like Clark would censor that, of course, because he doesn't care. I don't think Glenn cares. What people think, like mentioning the thing about knowing somebody with 4 nipples in the episode that aired a few weeks ago. I mean, he just throws it out right in the courtroom, So playing that is very fun. So that's been the best part for me, is how they keep opening that up.
Yeah, I think for me, what's been exciting is just the journey of Dembe with Red being locked up. Just opened up it opened up a window that we've never looked into, just as far as Dembe moving around on his own and taking care of some of this business for Red. And then as we see, once Red is that air already? Sometimes my brain is fried. But anyway, I'll just say it's exciting. The first half of the season was exciting because Red was locked up and Dembe was running around. And I will say that towards the end of the season, it's going to be pretty exciting too, with just the dynamic of Red and Dembe and some other stuff going on.
So, Dembe is actually, besides Red, because the fact that James Spader's voice, just for whatever reason, just sticks in my head. I think, is that true for you guys as well? That constant storytelling, is James Spader similar in any way to his Red character?
I think so. I think one of the things that John said in the panel discussion is there's been an excellent marriage between the characters and who we are as real people, and they have been able to just the language which each individual character just kind of fits how you personally talk, sometimes how you personally feel about a situation. So this marriage of Hisham and Dembe kind of bleeds in. I think that happens for everybody. So in the case of James Spader, it's kind of the same thing. It's who he is as a person, and then he loves to tell stories. He'll stop in the middle of film and, hey, I remember when I was,
go on a tangent.
So I think that's kudos to the writers and the creators to learn each one of us individually, and then start catering to that rhythm of our speech, or how we tell stories, or how we feel, and it's been kind of a perfect marriage.
I totally agree with that. I feel the thing that it strikes me, not only acting it, but watching the show, is the rhythm. For me, I feel like in my part, the rhythm is so clear, and I just play that rhythm. But I think that they're getting some of that from me, and then I'm getting a lot of it from them. It's an exchange again. But I look at some of those wonderful speeches James has, and just his delivery of them, but you can see that there's that dance going on between the writers and James, you know, or Isham, you know, and I think they, again, there's that symbiotic relationship, and a lot of it is in the rhythms too, I think. Because he's very much James's rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, I think, the first lessons you learn when you go to acting school. It's about bringing yourself to the role. And like, in this case, the role kind of, you bring yourself, but it just helps that we all kind of landed into these characters that mimic ourselves. So it's just a beautiful combination.
I like to think I'm a little more censored.
Well, then yes.
Not as much of a compulsive liar.
Well, since it is such a personal thing, what have been each of your, I guess, favorite parts of building these characters, since you do bring so much?
What's the question?
Well, as you build these characters throughout, and since it is so personal, what's, I guess, been your favorite part in bringing this character to life with you being a part of it, right? So, more than in other shows, I imagine.
Well, for me, this is kind of my first dance with a show in a series regular role like this. And I know personally for me, one of the great things for me is that this character is a freedom fighter from South Sudan who is Muslim. And I was born a Muslim, African American, raised in New York City. So there are just certain things about the character that I've been allowed to make the choice as far as him not drinking. Like any time when him and they sit down for a meal, or when they're on the jet, on the plane, you know, Red will get vodka and rocks, or you know, something like
Red
that.
wine.
Yeah, and Dembe would get tea, or he would get cranberry juice. So I don't know if you remember, I think it was last season or the season before that, when I was cooking this meal, and I poured a guy a glass of red wine, but then I poured myself, I think it was cranberry juice or grape juice. So little things like that mean a lot to me, and I'm pleased that I'm allowed to share that part of being Muslim in my personal life and on a national network. And even those little things carry a lot of weight. With the fans, especially those who are Muslim, not even African American, just Muslims, period. You know, they pick up on those little things.
Which doesn't get a lot of representation.
Absolutely not. Most of the times you see a Muslim character, you know, it's terrorists or bombing. So to play someone who has a conscience, who's kind, who's loyal, and has a lot of those good attributes, goes a long way. And I'm extremely excited about doing that and building on that. And I think towards the end of the season, I'm truly excited because some of those things are also going to be enhanced.
I think that it's interesting what Isham's saying too, and I think it's thing that I feel like these elements that all told comprise this character that I have to find within myself, because it's there, those components. But I think it's only as good as the relationships are. So that's the thing that I've loved in anything I do. It's one of my favorite things as an actor, is how can we continue to deepen this relation or explore the relationship. And so the relationships, and now, you know, Isham and I are developing a relationship. In the show more, my relationship keeps changing with deepening with Red, and you know, there's things that we find too. Some of it comes in the writing, and some of it comes spontaneously in the acting. Or I'm starting to develop a kind of a relationship Liz. But I know when the episode Isham and I did with Raymond, James, a couple of years ago, at one point we were sitting outside roasting hot dogs in front of James Red's airplane, and James, in the middle of the scene, reached over and sort of put his arm on my back and tapped me on the back sort of affectionately. And I thought, wow, I hope when they do the turnaround with the camera back behind us, I said, I really hope he keeps doing that. And he kept doing it. So, I mean, right there, you're starting to, that's information. You're mining the relationship. You're going, oh, it's revealing more of, and in an upcoming episode, I think, I suggested something at the coming out party they were talking about, and they shot it, and they kept it in. John had told me, but I thought, oh, this is an opportunity to reveal more about something else that they've talked about over the years, but haven't quite shown how he makes that happen. And I go, here's a chance to kind of see him in action. But again, the script, it was available in relation to what was happening and the way the story was going, the episode. So the relationships are so wonderful.
Cool.
Last question. I was just curious. So, especially for Dembe, just thinking about the journey of your characters for Glenn and the silence that you employ with that character is quite amazing. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about that and how important that was to Dembe's journey to where he is now. And for Clark, I mean, he's in such a unique position, being at the DMV, like having the power, and going on to where he is now. So tell me a little bit about season 1 of your characters and how that sort of changed you as an actor and approaching that character, but also like sort of helped like get the character to where they are now.
Wow. For me, there's an arc of emotions and feelings and experiences that have come from season 1 to now, because like I said, I had a different route into the acting business. I didn't go to college. I didn't get trained that way. I was a New York City firefighter at the time, doing acting on the side. So I had booked pilots. I had booked guest star roles. And originally, when I booked the show, it was only supposed to be for 1 episode. Yeah. And then that episode turned into 2 episodes. And then that turned into 3. So I was kind of hand-fed, and I was just ecstatic about that, and then that turned into another year. So I guest starred for 2 years. So at the 3rd year, when they made me series regular, that's when I started kind of having expectations of speaking dialogue, and it didn't come. So there was this marriage of, okay, they didn't really create this role that I did kind of build that, it grew as the seasons grew. And then I had to start to check myself and challenge myself on what I could do that was still as important as having a voice in television. And making sure that, because I've watched movies where the bodyguard comes in and and I knew I didn't want to be that guy. So it was about surveying the room. It was about listening. And when you listen, how does that affect me emotionally? How does that affect my face? So I grew and learned a lot by being put in that position. And I think in doing that, the creators over time, we had conversations, and they said, okay, let's start feeding you a little bit. And it just slowly started to snowball, which adds to the excitement, the things that have come in this season.
Sidebar, I have to ask, since I have you here, we are in a weird time, and I'm going to get to Blacklist, but we're in a weird time with superhero films, especially with like DCEU and all that stuff. And I just wanted to rewind it back to when you made the announcement with Batman vs Superman at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So can you just talk briefly about that, like, because you indirectly had had a hand in being a catalyst in a lot of respects of announcing the DCEU.
Right.
So,
Well, it's very cool because Zack Snyder. I love Zack Snyder. He's a great director and a great visual poet, in my opinion, and a very good actor-director. That said, he liked my voice, and
of course, man.
and it's really his voice is nice.
Come on, man.
I wish more people liked it. I could get more work. But that said, he had this idea of reading from the Frank Miller
Of course,
graphic novel, and so they sneaked me into San Diego. I got in the car. They sort of, like nobody would have given it to him anyway. They sneaked me in. And at midnight we rehearsed it. And so I went in, and there was a huge hall. I think it was Hall H.
Oh yeah,
And,
no, I was there.
Yeah, you were
I was there.
Yeah.
I remember.
And, man, so it was really the first time I think I ever felt like a rock star. So what happened is, I just always remember Clark. When you're alone or whatever the lines are, very pregnant with meaning and all of these things. And then I said, the man who beat you,
Yeah.
lights out.
And then the emblem.
The buzz, the emblem comes up, and the buzz is like, and I'm sneaking out, and I actually passed Tom Cruise. Oh man! So that was the first time in my life that I had been in the front of the featured person in a crowd that size.
Yeah.
You do shows with 1,000 people or whatever, but that was thousands. So, anyway, it was once in a
I
lifetime.
never forget. Nah, I remember. It's cool stuff.
So guys, 6 seasons so far. How have you seen your characters grow in those 6 seasons? Because I know there's been some developments, but how have you seen your character grow?
Sure. I consider the character and the emergence of the character and the growth of the character around a giant miracle. A small audition for what was supposed to be originally a small part that I wasn't even sure I wanted to do. I improvised a joke in my first episode because I was getting on a plane and the show hadn't come out. I didn't even know the tone. I knew it was a drama, and they didn't yell cut. So I knew they were just still rolling after the other characters had exited. So I'm just sitting there. So I just said something, and then I heard from the writer that when we saw that, we're like, oh, we could use a fun guy like this. And so I just started becoming a guy who did a few problem solving in the computer, in the war room, and I thought my function was to solve computer problems and maybe throw in a quip here and there to lighten the mood. And that's really all I thought my job was, and I just thought I'd be there a sprinkling of the episodes. And it grew from there, and great credit to Bokenkamp and Eisendrath and the writing staff, and started leaning into different things I could do as an actor that I didn't even know I could do, and that they really trusted. And I remember season 2, I remember being like, they were like, what would you want? I was like, I want Aram, to get a hug, and then I got a girlfriend, and then I was like, I want Aram, and then I was in a love triangle, and then now I'm in the field, and now I'm interrogating people, and now I'm dealing with a fiance that has aphasia, and I shot a missile. I started off as the computer guy who was nervous about even just doing a good job for Coop and the task force. So I'm continually challenged, and I feel continually rewarded. And this whole event of the Blacklist has been one of the biggest lottery tickets and great fortunes of my career and my life.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure that my character's grown in that sense of over the years. Like, he's an interesting man. He's obviously complicated. That is, Cooper is at least complex, and I think he knows the nuances of what it takes to do something like this. There's a fine line between legality and illegality, of cops and robbers. How far am I willing to do? So I think that rather than sort of, I've deepened it, I think, by intensely focused on how do you justify this relationship with Red Reddington. And this is, and I don't think we can ever get to the bottom of that. That is, and to me, philosophically, that's very interesting. As a man of faith, but also of reason and science and evidence, I like to get very sort of theoretical and philosophical about acting and character, and in this world where we have an entire ethos of mythology, if you will, of who these people are and why they do what they do. So I see them primarily not as an acting exercise, but as archetypal figures that can be developed for their own purpose and their own reason. And for me, it is the line between what is legal, what is the law, that is, and what is justice. And I think that if Cooper has made a development, is that where he used to be legalistic, he is now justice. And that may or may not be concerned with the legality.
I would like to piggyback on that, and Aram has followed that lead. Absolutely. He thought it was like, I didn't even get his biggest thrill was, I hacked in his computer without a warrant. Like, I remember that was like season 3, and now I'm shooting missiles and completely breaking the law, going on secret missions with Cooper's blessing. That's something that's absolutely, he follows his lead in that way, and also never thought he would break any laws. And here he is. He's complete. I think that's one of the themes of the show that he was alluding to is, nothing is, it's gray area. Nothing is completely black or white. It is where does morality exist? Where does the ends justifies the means? No one is absolute. Red has a code. He's certainly a murderer and a bad man, but he's also got an incredible code and does incredible good with us. Wrestler is also a character that is really on a lawman. He's a true noble lawman who's been forced to do things and keep secrets and protect Liz and all kinds of things. So I really think that's actually one of the themes of the show. And
Yeah.
And I was going to say, to add further to what you were just commenting about, can you talk a bit about the fact, since these characters, operate in such a gray area, have there been any elements of the characters themselves in portraying the characters that have challenged you personally, where you find, wow, this is actually intrinsically, changed how I view things or how I approach things? Because sometimes I know characters can be close to who you are as people, and a lot of times they're so far off from who you are, but still you have to find something there to connect with.
It is a great question. I think, there's a lot of Cooper in me.
Okay.
And obviously it's me and Cooper. But there's also a lot of Reddington in me, absent the murder. But,
I hope so.
Right, absolutely.
I hope so.
Although I thought about it. But it's not, I think the character's relatively close, but I'm way less formal than Cooper, way less legalistic than Cooper. But to your point of, how has that influenced my thinking on these matters? I think it's underscored what I've always felt, which is sometimes in order to achieve justice, a balance has to be created. Sometimes to achieve
methods.
That balance is such a preponderance in this way. Mm-hmm. Let's just look at the political situations or racial situations. Things like boys' schools, because they broke the Title IX law or what have you, were eradicated when we know that they were working. And so sometimes you actually have to do something extreme in the other way just to create the sense of equilibrium. And I think that this television series has sort of given me fuel for that, and it has underscored that. Okay. That Reddington, in spite of the fact that he's problematic, and we have to do a lot of answering for him and cleaning up after him, is a necessary evil. And I believe that necessary evils, from a certain point of view, could be looked at as a good. And so as I've gotten more and more into philosophy, and I love these kinds of in theology, it's been sort of a parallel track that's run along with the development of the show and my way of looking at life in general. I don't think that I haven't had any great revelations from it, just undergirding of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope it does.
I don't know how to follow
Right.
that. Really don't. I'm thinking about it. I'm listening, and it's a question that I think I could ponder, and I feel like I would answer it a different way, episode to episode and year to year.
Right.
As we go through things, I know that 6 years ago I was a different person than I am now. Actually, biologically, every 7 years we're completely different, right? All of our cells have regenerated. So actually, we are literally corporally different. So we're approaching the 7th season. We're renewed, so we're going to be entirely different. Sounding like metaphysical.
Mind blown.
I try to. I don't know if I was raised or is the way I think. I really, but this is going to sound. I hope this doesn't sound corny, but I really believe in the power of positivity. Really profoundly believe in it. So many ways, and hard work. I don't think anything happens in this life without hard work, and I think it only can happen in a better way. I'm off topic, but I'm a human. I fall down the rabbit hole. I fall down the dark, and so to have to show up and play a Ram who I feel like is also relentlessly positive, and if I'm not in that place and I got to show up, I'm reminded of who I want to be. But also at the same time, I love it when they give him a chance to fail and be bummed out or depressed or whatever it is. So, and just on a very basic level, I just Ram and the gift of getting to do this for so long just reminds me the gift I have in this job, and to remain positive and to work just as hard on your craft and in your life as a Ram does on each case. That's what I would say.
So real quick, just a quick comment. I actually love the show. I'm a big fan. I find it interesting just in the title when I finished up the last season that like as I think about like what the original Blacklist was to now when I look at the characters of the show, and I'm like, these are actually the most dangerous people in this country. Like they are very powerful. They can do things. They make things happen. So it's like I kind of find that's an interesting little thing. Of like I'm watching the actual characters that are on this dangerous blacklist. But I have to say, Aram, and this is not just because you're here, but Aram is actually one of my favorite characters. And the reason for that is because 6 years ago, I actually used to work for Apple as a computer technician. So your character kind of like, I was your
Voice.
character. It was right
Voice
there.
of the computer geek.
Yeah, like, go get him. And it's like, but to my question, the question is, before like Blacklist or before like all the different things that you guys have done, what was maybe a job that you had that you felt sort of gave you some foundation to then going into acting that you remember that you say that man I know this wasn't that thing or the the big role that I got to be where I am now, but whether it was like a waiter or IT technician or whatever it was, what do you remember if there was a role in your life that you had like that?
Like a job?
Yeah, like a regular job.
I mean this. I've only held one. I worked one day at a pizzeria as a host, and then I got a tour of Charlotte's Web with TheaterWorks USA, and I never held another job except an acting job since then. It's not to be. I was 22. I went and toured the country. I did 2 lines on a soap opera. I learned the beautiful thing of unemployment, which actor to actor, you at no fault of your own lose a job when the job ends its run. If you're not fired. So I would collect unemployment. I learned the concept of residuals. You do a co-star on Law and Order Criminal Intent,
National
and then you get some
commercial,
paid. You do a national commercial. So I cobbled together lived in a tiny little studio and loved it. That was the most, each job that I'd gotten, including the Blacklist along the way, was just as exciting as the Blacklist because it was the next step forward. So honestly, my first job, I got that TheaterWorks USA. I got my equity union card. That was like, this can work. You know, maybe I don't know if that's the answer, but this can work. But I'd always believed, you know, as Harry said, my parents were always encouraging in my dreams. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fall forward. I'm going to fail trying. You know, fortunately, you know, and I enjoy it too much to stop.
Yeah, you got to follow up.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't have that story. I've had many jobs. I started working professionally as a sophomore at Northwestern, however, and at that same time I was a librarian, following in my brother, who's now deceased, following in his footsteps. So to me, the library was a great reservoir of information, and I you know, wasn't always stacking books. I would look at these books and go around the world in true time. So that was a huge one. But I was a school teacher while I was a professional actor in Chicago. So I taught public school here for 8 years as a music teacher, and I have played probably a dozen of my students throughout the years in movies or television shows or in plays, because their personalities are so rich and they have such energy. But I have amalgamated in many senses, you know, some of those people that I have encountered over the years as a teacher. And then also, you know, I owned and operated a grocery store, a little bodega. I've been many things in my time, but I've learned and incorporated it into the work all along. But I would say more than even school teaching and ripping off my students' personalities, to learn how to learn, to learn how to study and to research is what I picked up at the library. I love studying. I love to study. If I weren't doing this, I would have devoted my life to a life of quiet study, maybe as a priest. I studied to be a priest here in Chicago at the seminary. And that was my original intention, was to go into the priesthood as a Dominican priest. But, you know, I feel that this is in its own way a kind of service. But I learned humility and study at the seminary and where to find information, something we refer to as metacognition in the library.
You always play such authoritative roles.
Not always, but yes.
Is that your favorite role to play? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it beats the hell out of being a slave. Being beaten down as a slave every movie, which we've had quite enough of. Yeah. Although I've done I've acted at every level. I've played every kind of. I've played gangsters. I've played politicians. I've played lawyers. You know, so the panoply. It's just that the most light I've received when a project is successful, like The Blacklist. My early years, I wasn't authoritative.
And by the way, I still think your character was right in The Matrix. By the way, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
He was right. I mean,
he is right. What is he supposed to? I mean, that's his job.